They found Earth by accident, a low-priority blue-green speck orbiting a G-class star. The 7th Dominion's automated scouts flagged it for evaluation. Atmosphere breathable. Gravity manageable. Technology primitive. Indigenous species human, bipedal, warm-blooded, aggressive history. The fleet's AI assigned it a 0.3 threat index. Grand Marshal Xerex didn't read the full report. He never did for uncontacted backwaters. On the bridge of the flagship Vigilant Glory, his sub-commanders reviewed intercepted human broadcasts. Most were noise, advertisements, fiction, static. But one transmission from a human museum caught their attention, a segment featuring an old rotary gun firing in slow motion. Brass casings spilled like water, smoke curling from rotating barrels. The humans called it a Gatling gun. A relic, according to the audio transcript. Designed in the 19th century. Is this weapon still in use? One of Xerex's aides asked the ship's AI. Negative. Historical artifact. Kinetic-based. No shield-penetrating properties. Classified, ceremonial threat. The room laughed. One officer suggested dropping a squad near such a museum just for sport. Xerex approved the idea, amused by the prospect of his elite troops stepping over rusted metal and terrified locals. He dispatched a strike team of 50 advanced infantry to a mountainous region in Earth's northern continent. The AI calculated minimal resistance, minimal risk. Just another planetary pacification. The drop pods hissed into the atmosphere, carving through cloud and cold. They landed with precise brutality near a forgotten village flanked by forest and stone. The troopers emerged, 2 meters tall in shimmering carapace armor, plasma rifles locked into neural sync. Their helmets scanned for movement. Thermal signatures confirmed a scattering of human life signs in the treeline, none clustered enough to suggest an organized defense. The squad leader activated his external speaker. "Surrender, and you will be processed without pain," he said in perfect English, his voice modulated and booming. There was no reply. Just the wind and birdsong. Then, a sound that didn't fit. Mechanical. Rhythmic. Faint at first, like distant clockwork. Tack, 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 tack? The lead trooper tilted his head. Unidentified noise. 45 degrees east. He raised his weapon. Suddenly, the mountain air tore apart with a deafening roar. Not plasma. Not any energy-based detonation. This was raw, brutal percussion. The first volley shredded the lead formation. 3 soldiers went down before their suits registered the threat. The rounds didn't burn or dissolve. They punched, tore, and shattered. The source, a hand-cranked Gatling gun mounted on an old pickup truck bed, hidden behind a camouflaged ridge. The human operating it, a bearded man in a baseball cap, didn't stop turning the crank. Not even as the barrels glowed red. Casings flew like golden rain. The weapon barked fury, unchanged in principle since its creation a century and a half ago. Alien shields, calibrated for plasma and laser diffraction, proved useless. They shimmered then collapsed under the sheer density and velocity of physical lead. The Dominion had engineered defenses for future weapons, not Earth's past. The squad tried to retreat, but more fire erupted from the trees, bolt-action rifles, black powder muskets, even crossbows laced with explosives. It was chaos. Not war, not by Dominion standards. It was a slaughter. One alien, dragging his bleeding comrade behind cover, screamed into comms. "We're under attack by kinetic rotary weapon. No shielding. Troopers falling, rapidly." The command ship received the message but couldn't comprehend it. A kinetic rotary weapon? That had to be an error. The battlefield was being mapped in real time, thermal, radar, motion. Yet their forces were falling to an antique. From the ridgeline, another human joined the fray. This one fired a sawed-off shotgun, the pellets pinging off armor, but enough to blind a sensor array. Then came Molotovs. Then came machetes. Only a handful of troopers made it back to the extraction point. Their armor was dented, scorched, leaking coolant. Some were missing limbs. One carried the upper half of a fallen comrade, whispering a battle prayer in his native tongue. As they lifted off, the survivors looked back. One human was standing next to the Gatling gun. He wasn't armed now. Just staring up at the ship, unmoving. There was no fear in his eyes. Just disdain. Back aboard the Vigilant Glory, Xerxes reviewed the feed. 50 elite soldiers. Crushed. An old-world weapon was at the center of it all. A relic, he muttered. They used a relic. One of his tacticians adjusted the playback to freeze on the weapon. It's manual. No targeting systems. No tracking. Just brute rotational fire. Primitive, Xerxes said. Deadly, the aide corrected, lowering his voice. Xerxes didn't respond. He watched as the barrels of the Gatling gun spun in silence, even on replay. It wasn't supposed to matter. But it had. They returned in force. 2 full platoons, reinforced with aerial drones and shield-bearing enforcers, dropped onto Earth's surface less than 12 hours after the first slaughter. The operation was now designated a red-level containment action. No contact. No diplomacy. No restraint. The mission was clear: eradicate the hostile humans, secure the artifact responsible, and assert Imperial dominance. The landing zone was adjusted. Troopers were ordered to maintain distance from woodland, engage only from open terrain, and deploy thermal scans before disembarking. The AI filtered topography, flagged possible ambush zones, and adjusted squad movement to account for human irregular tactics. As the dropships touched down in staggered formation, Dominion soldiers emerged in 3-meter exo-armors, thick, plated, plasma-redundant. They deployed tri-legged artillery walkers and surveillance spheres equipped with anti-material sensors. The command unit, confident in calculated suppression, moved in a diamond formation toward the last known location of the kinetic weapon. The first volley wasn't from above or behind. It came directly from the valley floor, a burst of kinetic fury that caught the lead walker mid-stride. The entire right leg exploded, not from detonation, but structural failure. A line of impact rounds had been fired from reinforced cover. The angle and trajectory indicated fixed emplacements. The Gatling gun had been reassembled, repositioned, and now belt-fed from a modified motor rig. The operator no longer turned a crank. It fired sustained, uninterrupted bursts with calculated timing. Every shot counted. Human engineers had mounted makeshift cooling coils around the barrels, recycling car radiator parts to sustain rate of fire beyond original limits. Dominion troops attempted shield reinforcement. It failed. Physical projectiles continued to bypass energy matrices. The older the projectile, the more effective. Their systems, perfected against plasma volatility, were blind to mass and momentum. The kinetic rounds punched straight through chest plates. Soldiers folded in half, helmets crushed, torsos torn open by waves of steel. The drones swept forward in retaliation, spraying charged plasma pulses. But they couldn't locate heat signatures in the ruined structures. Humans had taken shelter behind ceramic walls, stone foundations, and even stacked hay bales, material too organic to register under Dominion scans. Gunfire erupted from multiple points. Bolt-action rifles precisely timed between bursts. The resistance wasn't wild. It was tactical. Controlled. A Dominion enforcer broke formation to engage at close quarters. He stormed a farmhouse thought to be abandoned. A tripwire ignited black powder charges, demolishing the structure and launching shrapnel through nearby troopers. The old methods, their simplicity, rendered them undetectable by alien systems. A sniper round, fired from nearly 2 kilometers away, penetrated the visor of a command officer. His death caused an immediate AI freeze in his squad's tactical net. With his neural uplink severed, the soldiers defaulted to individual behavior protocols, slower, predictable. The humans exploited the hesitation within seconds. The Gatling gun rotated back toward the advancing infantry and resumed fire. Not a suppression burst, but a directed line, sweeping through the squad's midsection. A second gun joined in, this one mounted on a trailer bed, fired remotely from a concealed pit. Humans had not only recovered the old weapon, they had multiplied it, mechanized it, optimized its carnage. The Dominion's support artillery tried locking on, but GPS disruptions and magnetic interference scrambled their targeting. The humans had ignited old communication towers to jam signal arrays. It was primitive electronic warfare, short range, analog, dirty. But it worked. A group of Dominion soldiers retreated to a defensive shell, calling for aerial extraction. The sky darkened as a transport descended. As it neared, a missile streaked upward from a trench, striking the ship's undercarriage. It wasn't guided. It wasn't new. It was a Cold War-era surface-to-air launcher, buried for decades and manually triggered. The ship spiraled down, breaking apart in flames, crashing behind a hill. Screams filled the comms. Every protocol failed to account for enemies who didn't fight with logic. They fought with fury, memory, and an obsessive respect for warfare. In the last minutes of the engagement, one trooper activated a visual uplink to the command ship. The feed was erratic, his breathing heavy. He was dragging his shattered lower body through mud, plasma weapon discarded, trying to reach cover. Behind him, the Gatling's relentless roar drew closer. Its spin-up had become the sound of death. He choked out a message. They resurrected their past. And it's killing us. Then the feed went black. From orbit, Dominion strategists reviewed the loss. 56 soldiers. 3 walkers. 2 drones. 1 ship. No human casualties confirmed. The AI recalculated Earth's threat index. It jumped from 0.3 to 7.9. And for the first time in Dominion history, the recommendation was not retaliation. It was observation. Because something on Earth had survived every extinction it faced, not because of innovation, but because it never forgot how to fight with what it had. The Empire escalated. What had been a surgical occupation was now classified as a hostile insurgency. Full-spectrum units were deployed, hover tanks, aerial strike wings, and genetically modified war beasts. The terrain was mapped, civilian clusters isolated, heat signatures tracked. Earth was to be pacified through overwhelming force. Initial deployment covered 3 primary regions. The approach shifted from small strikes to saturation. Command assumed shock and all would collapse local resistance. Within hours, they discovered the error. Earth's defenders had evolved again. They no longer relied solely on outdated firepower, they adapted, fast. Abandoned factories were reactivated. Mechanics converted machinery into gun carriages. Hobbyists with welding experience forged armor plating from scrap. Ballistics labs repurposed museum ammunition, recalibrating it to match newly machined barrels. Rural networks shared designs via radio packets. In basements and barns, industrial war returned. When the first hover tank patrol entered a rural kill zone, they were greeted not with frontal assaults, but layered misdirection. Burned-out vehicles formed decoy targets. Shattered signs broadcast false coordinates. Buried beneath farm soil, shaped charges, improvised, chemical-based, manually triggered, disabled tank treads before the enemy could respond. Then came the ambush. From tree lanes and barn lofts, humans fired recoilless rifles, some over 70 years old. One projectile pierced the undercarriage of a command vehicle, igniting internal fuel. The next strike took down a Dominion patrol ship as it attempted low-altitude recon. Human spotters coordinated by signal mirror, aligning anti-aircraft guns smuggled from forgotten stockpiles. Despite their age, the weapons required no targeting interface, just line of sight and resolve. The hit wasn't luck. It was calculation. Dominion forces reported increasing incidents of ambushes not covered by any known tactical doctrine. Tripwire fields extended across kilometers. Decoys mimicked heat profiles of living humans. Resistance fighters camouflaged themselves not in invisibility cloaks or refractive armor, but in mud, leaves, and ash. It confused scanners calibrated to detect energy gradients. One scout unit walked straight into a trench system hand-dug over a week, and never returned. Captured footage revealed disturbing trends. Human soldiers didn't retreat in the face of superior numbers. They split, flanked, and baited. In one instance, a single defender lured 3 Dominion enforcers into a stone chapel, detonated the building using gas lines and magnesium flares, and emerged alive under a slab. They fought without regard for doctrine, symmetry, or expectation. Their aim wasn't control. It was destruction. One Dominion officer attempted a counter using psi disruption grenades, designed to disorient through auditory overload. Humans responded by firing from positions with ear protection and preloaded rhythms of gunfire. The grenades failed to disable anyone. Worse, the humans recorded the frequency, mimicked it through old loudspeakers, and lured additional patrols to false objectives. In command reviews, Dominion strategists began referencing Earth's warfare not as primitive, but unstructured metatactics. The term spread within internal briefings. Reports grew increasingly erratic. One noted that human resistance cells no longer waited for engagement, they preempted it. A small band infiltrated a Dominion ammo supply post, planted corrosive acids, and broadcast fake beacons to simulate safe landing zones. When the resupply drops landed, the humans destroyed them before a single crate was retrieved. By the third week, Dominion casualty rates surpassed predictions by 600%. Communications faltered. Human radio waves jammed key frequencies using nothing but high-volume white noise and magnetic interference generated by rotary motors. In desperation, one Dominion squad activated close-quarter protocols and attempted a brute-force sweep of a forest sector. They never encountered direct fire, but dozens were incapacitated by traps involving nets, spikes, and swinging logs. The war beasts fared no better. Released as terror agents, the 8-limbed predators were expected to clear compounds in minutes. Instead, they fell to trenches lined with oil and flame. In one instance, locals used nothing more than iron rods, rebar, and spiked chains to kill the creatures as they flailed blindly in narrow choke points. An intercepted human transmission clarified the philosophy. A shortwave radio clip contained a single sentence. "We don't need to match your power. We just need you to bleed." In the wake of their losses, the Dominion paused further deployments. A directive from higher command ordered a full threat reclassification. Earth was no longer considered a subdued zone. It was now marked as an uncontrolled war theater. Request for orbital strikes was submitted. Approval pending. But even within command, doubt was growing. The humans weren't winning because of numbers, resources, or even superior strategy. They were winning because they never relied on any one system. They turned every piece of their past into a weapon. Every failure into a trap. Every relic into leverage. What the Empire viewed as chaos, the humans had long since embraced as survival. And survival, for Earth, had always meant outlasting the unprepared. The captured Dominion officer regained consciousness in a makeshift cell beneath concrete rubble. His translator implant flickered, syncing slowly with the ambient language. The human guarding him was silent, cleaning a bolt-action rifle on a metal crate. No interrogation. No torture. Just quiet efficiency. Over the next hours, the officer heard voices, not from propaganda or lectures, but recorded broadcasts. War documentaries, old speeches, fragments of Earth's own brutal history. He listened as narration detailed how men charged machine guns with bayonets, how civilians endured sieges with no food for weeks, how firebombs turned cities into ash and still failed to break resistance. He learned about trench warfare, suicide missions, and battles fought in frozen wastelands with nothing but willpower and iron discipline. This wasn't myth. This was the record. The reality. A species that had perfected war long before discovering space. Every moment deepened the contrast. The Dominion waged war by protocol, limited, methodical, bound by doctrine and technological restraint. Human warfare ignored restraint. It devoured limits. It was not just physical, it was psychological, cultural, ancestral. The officer saw names repeated in different eras, always associated with defiance: Stalingrad, Iwo Jima, Fallujah. Places where humans held when logic dictated surrender. What shook him more was the tone. Humans didn't celebrate violence. They respected it, feared it, studied it like a craft. Their victories weren't clean. They came at cost, soaked in sacrifice, and still revered because of what they revealed about endurance. Dominion campaigns measured success in territory gained. Human wars measured it in who was still breathing. The officer was eventually allowed to walk under escort. No restraints. The humans didn't fear him. They showed him the gun that started it, the original Gatling, now enhanced. Reinforced with parts stripped from wrecked alien drones, its chassis stabilized, feeding mechanism automated. Despite the upgrades, it remained brutally simple. No complex software. No remote control. Just spin and fire. He was led past other weapons, artillery from the early 20th century, mortars cobbled together from scrap, flamethrowers reassembled from parts never meant to be military. None of it should have worked against an interstellar power. But it had. Not because of material strength, but because the humans accepted imperfection and used it without hesitation. In a briefing chamber dug out from an old-school basement, the officer was shown a map covered in handwritten symbols. No holograms. No touch screens. Just markers and tape. A commander explained their structure: loose cells, flexible command, no centralized dependency. Take one down, 3 adapt. It's not doctrine. It's instinct. The officer tried to explain to his superiors what he was witnessing. His reports were dismissed as exaggeration. One high official accused him of mental compromise. But he insisted, humans don't need parity to pose a threat. They use entropy. They live in it. He cited a specific case, an engagement where a small human unit disabled a Dominion landing pad by flooding the nearby fields, turning the soil into adhesive mud. No explosives. Just redirected water and time. Another report followed, an entire supply convoy lost to a hillside collapse, triggered by dynamite placed in the 19th century during railroad construction. The humans hadn't just weaponized their present. They had mined their own past. He included audio from a human veteran who had told him, "Your kind builds weapons that end wars. We build weapons that teach the next generation how to keep fighting." The Dominion's Data Analysis Corps received his transmissions and began processing archived records from Earth. Within hours, the algorithm red flagged over 300 historical patterns of asymmetric warfare, each with methods still applicable against advanced forces. For every technological leap, humans had developed a brutal workaround using resourcefulness and persistence. There were no predictable limits to how far they would go. A new combat theory emerged among Dominion tacticians. Humans were not an anomaly. They were a survival paradigm. Where most species sought equilibrium, humans thrived in chaos. Where others sought to preserve, humans dismantled and rebuilt. Their civilization had endured collapse, nuclear threat, and ideological schisms, and still retained cohesion through sheer defiance. Dominion field units began referring to human engagement zones not by coordinates, but by nicknames. The Grinder, Hell Hollow, No Return Ridge. These were not official terms. They were created out of fear. Soldiers whispered about the spinning guns, the shadow ambushes, the cold efficiency of a species that never stopped preparing for war, even when peace was an option. The officer was eventually extracted, deemed compromised, but not before his final report reached high command. It ended with a line translated from English, written by an unknown resistance leader. "Victory isn't the absence of fear. It's standing where others break, and firing one more round." The final deployment came with silence. No announcements. No threats. The Dominion's final option was enacted under code blackout. Orbital platforms aligned. Stratospheric bombers armed with atmosphere shredder payloads entered low orbit. The plan was simple: burn the resistance, decimate infrastructure, erase any trace of human defiance. Tactical orbital fire was reserved for species classified as catastrophic. Earth had earned that classification through grid alone. As countdowns began, interference scrambled the synchronization. Command uplinks blinked out one by one. Human jamming extended further than predicted. They'd embedded analog disruptors inside city power grids, using their own electrical systems as signal weapons. A payload launched prematurely detonated midair, fried by a surge from a hacked substation. The humans had discovered the targeting wavelength and corrupted it with noise. The order to abort came too late. A carrier platform lost guidance, descended uncontrolled, and exploded upon re-entry. Human forces claimed the wreckage, extracted power cores, and repurposed the shielding for improvised bunkers. With every failure, Earth grew more fortified. Dominion Command hesitated. Delays turned into full suspension. What should have been annihilation became strategic withdrawal. Across battlefields, Dominion troops received encrypted directives to fall back and regroup. But Earth's defenders didn't allow retreat. Ambushes continued during extraction. Intercepted messages indicated the humans had mapped every evac corridor. In one sector, they blocked retreat using redirected floodwaters. In another, a highway was collapsed with pre-planted explosives. Each move was patient, precise. Dominion soldiers weren't hunted, they were dismantled. The last significant engagement occurred on a hillside known to locals as Raptor Ridge. Dominion tanks advanced to clear the path for a final troop withdrawal. Waiting for them were 3 Gatling guns. All hand-operated, all firing rounds made from salvaged lead and brass. None of it should have mattered. But it did. Every burst tore through armor plating, forced pilots to eject into waiting traps, dismembered exosuits as if they were paper. When the smoke cleared, no human units had fled. Every gun kept firing until the barrels glowed. Every defender stayed until the last shell casing fell. Dominion optics recorded the pattern. Human defenders standing motionless amid ruin, eyes forward, weapons resting. They did not cheer. They waited for the next attack that never came. From orbit, Dominion commanders watched the footage. They saw outdated weapons fire with mechanical persistence. They saw fighters who did not run when surrounded. No superweapons. No miracles. Just consistency. Relentless, functional violence rooted in memory and sharpened by desperation. The evacuation order extended fleet-wide. Earth was to be removed from conquest routes. No reinforcements. No observation. Any future engagement required full War Council authorization. It was the highest restriction level ever placed on a single planet. Weeks later, intercepted Dominion chatter revealed a phrase now circulating in their command channels. Red Earth Protocol. It meant no landing, no provocation, no assumption of superiority. The humans had not won by technology or numbers. They'd won by refusing to break. And by proving that every perceived weakness could be transformed into an edge. The ripple spread beyond the Dominion. Other species, long subdued or conquered, noted the withdrawal. A few sent probes to confirm it. Earth's skies were quiet, but its surface showed new construction, reinforced shelters, active signal towers, civilian drills. No treaties. No declarations. Just preparation. Among human ranks, there was no celebration. Survivors returned to rebuilding. Factories resumed normal production. Engineers recorded everything: modifications, tactics, flaws. Museums updated their displays, not with pride, but precision. The Gatling gun that opened the first resistance wasn't enshrined. It was rebuilt again, this time fitted with modular attachments in case of return. Global communication remained low-key. No unified government spoke on behalf of Earth. Yet in every region, from frozen tundra to desert plains, the same philosophy prevailed: never forget, never relax, never assume peace is permanent. Veterans gave lectures in schools, not about glory, but about cost. Every shot fired had a name behind it. Every survivor had buried someone. That memory became doctrine. Off-world, distant colonies whispered about Earth as legend. The planet that fought with rusted steel and unbreakable wool. Dominion forces, once feared across systems, now hesitated when encountering even faint human signals. Military academies quietly revised their curriculum, integrating historical human conflicts as case studies in asymmetric resilience. No empire document acknowledged defeat. No press releases circulated. But policy changed. Patrols rerouted. Research into Earth-based materials expanded. And deep within Dominion archives, a report labeled Human Containment Failure was locked under strategic isolation. Its final entry read, Do not engage without total commitment. If provoked, humans will not escalate, they will endure. And they will make you regret underestimating their past.